Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and being a producer of Wrestle Massacre as well as Inside Movies Galore, I am David Strege, and welcome to Delusions of Grandeur. Enjoy the reviews. I certainly did.
Okay, Dave, that's it. Screw you and your college flunkies. I've had enough of this from you and from everyone else. I know what you guys are trying to do. Break me down, drive me out of the force. Well, it's going to take a hell of a lot more than a lame prank like this to get Curtis Mooney to throw in his badge, so fuck you. Over.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Delusions of Grandeur. I'm your host, David Strege, and here I have a review of a television series that I have been watching. I ended up picking up the first two seasons of American Gods, which is based on a Neil Gaiman novel of the same name, which I have read at least half of. And so I figured I'd combine a double duo review of both seasons as a overall um, viewpoint of what I thought of these seasons. I was unsure how I would like the actor involved in playing Shadow Moon. Let us go into this. So this was created by Bryan Fuller, Michael Green, and it stars Ricky Whittle, Emily Browning, Crispin Glover, um, Teddy Badaki, Bruce Langley, Pablo Schreiber, Ian McShane, um, Demore Barnes, Omid Abtahi, Orlando Jones, and Mousa Kresh, and a ton of other interesting cast members. So, in this first season, we have a character by the name of Shadow Moon, and he's in prison, and in this particular story, he is in prison because of assault and battery, and he's supposed to be getting out for good behavior, but he gets out early because his wife, Laura Moon, was played by Emily Browning, and Ricky Whittle is the young man who plays Shadow Moon. I love this name, Shadow Moon. He gets out early, learning that his wife has died in a car accident, apparently with his best friend's cock in her mouth. And that is no phrase on and the whole reason why he learns this is through the funeral of his wife's, and he learns this from the best friend's wife, who apparently knows this information, and as she drunk tried to flirt with him. Well, in any case, Shadow Moon ends up meeting this man by the name of Mr. Wednesday, and he's offered a proposition of of employment. He runs into him not once but twice and on a first class trip somewhere. He ends up um, offering him an employment as like a bodyguard kind of a person. And being offered this job, all he asks is that he is able to somehow say goodbye to his wife and so on and so forth. And I guess before he even has a chance to say goodbye to his wife, um, he has a fight with a leprechaun, takes his coin, and ends up putting giving this coin to his wife on top of her grave. That will come back to later. But what happens is, well, Shadow is an interesting character himself. He actually has this magic trick that he does with his hands, where he can actually flip the coin back around over his fingers and back around. And evidently, he was taught this when he was very little to practice. In the second season, we'll find that out. But we end up realizing that Mr. Wednesday is more than he seems. Apparently, there is a war going on between old gods and new gods, and we're introduced to different characters. One being a love goddess who seems to eat people through her vagina. um, we have Anansi, also known as Mr. Nancy, played by Orlando Jones, who evidently can incite rage in people as a god. Um, you are introduced to him during a time on a slave ship where he evidently, in the guise of a spider, was being spoken to by one of the slaves on a ship. And basically, he told him after he helped him out of his cuffs that all he had to do was take back what was rightfully theirs, because anger gets shit done. But Orlando Jones brings an atmosphere with him. He brings all the history of racism against black people with him from the old world into this battle of against the new. And so I think he is an interesting character to bring. I mean, we got a tale of a djinn and his lover, and vice versa. So, and in this first season, he takes Mr. Wednesday takes Shadow Moon with him to Chicago, where he visits three sisters who take care of watching things during the day, during the evening, and then during the night. And Shadow Moon is given protection of um, sorts from the moon through a coin of some sort that he is able to evidently use as protection. Um, but he also ends up running into a character by the name of New Media, which we at first see through a moment where uh, um, apparently uh, she shows up as Lucille Ball at first, and in the book I believe she showed up on TV in his motel room, whereas in this particular television series, he is told to go out and get a few things, and she shows up on some television screens in in the electronics section, and only he seems to see these images, and she tries to get to bribe him with a job being with her or working for her because she's heard about him or whatnot. We also have the character of Mr. World, who apparently is played by Crispin Glover. And this is a very weird and interesting role for him because we get to see a psychotic version of Crispin Glover. What we might have seen in what we saw in Willard, except to the power of 20, where he's on the side of the new gods, and uh, he just wants the old gods to die, and evidently he's in cahoots with Technical Boy, which evidently Technical Boy is played by Bruce Langley. He's a young kid who evidently does things through technology. And so you've got on the side of the new gods, you've got Technical Boy, Mr. World, Mr. Town, and what happens is Shadow Moon ends up um, having a checker game with one of the family members that lives with um, and he, one of the family members called Zernobog, and he has a job or had a job as using his hammer to kill cows. And this guy is actually played by Peter Stormare, and he's kind of a seedy kind of a character. Um, and I guess Shadow lost the first game, but he redeemed himself by winning the second game and brought him into the fray of this war. So all of this, and then the fact that the coin that sunk into his wife's grave ends up bringing her back to life in the very end. This was a very weird, very good series. And if I hadn't have been interested in the book, I might not have been interested. I might have been interested in the TV series alone, but it's because I read the book itself. Now, the series is directed by David Slade, Adam Kane, Christopher J. Byrne, Vincenzo Natali, Floria Sigismondi, Craig Zobel, Paco Cabezas, Deborah Chow, Stacy Paston, Sally Richardson Whitfield, Richard Talele, Frederick E.O. Toy, Tim Southam, and Mark Tinker. But the series was evidently 16 episodes of these were written by Neil Gaiman. Olivia Purnell also wrote 8 episodes. Maria Melnick wrote about 8 episodes. Heather Belson wrote about 2. Aditi Brennan Kappel about 2. Becca Brunstetter Seamus Kevin Fahey, David Graziano, Jesse Alexander, Rodney Barnes, Peter Calloway, Tyler Danucci, uh, Andres Fisher Cantano, Jim Danger Gray, Andrea Lang, and Charles H. Egley all wrote under one episode. So there we have the first season. I thought the first season was put together rather well. I mean, you got to see different gods and goddesses in the end of the series. You got to see all these different Jesuses on Easter. um, the different versions of Jesus that people believe in. So to me, you get to see a modern day representation to me, and I got to be honest, Ian McShane is in his element in this series. I mean, I thought I liked his character as the seedy um, bar owner um, in Deadwood, but I really enjoyed his character in here and who he eventually ends up being um, told to be. uh, comes up in the second season. Now, in season 2 of this series, the first episode is absolutely my favorite because what happens in the end is of the first season leads up to the second season. This second season involves them going to, and the thing is, they're going to parts of Chicago in the first season, and they're still in Wisconsin. Then they go to the house on the rock to have a meeting of the gods by going through the carousel that is in the house on the rock. And once they do, and Shadow Moon ends up going through this carousel, he learns who Wednesday really is, or at least who they claim to be. So, but one thing I love about the second season is you get to see an episode of Shadow Moon's past and his relationship with his mother and who he might be in reality in relation to Mr. Wednesday and why Mr. Wednesday has involved him in his life to begin with. And we find out that he's the one who actually taught him the magic trick to do with his hands when he first moved to the United States. And so we also have the showing up of his dead wife, who has been brought to life by that lucky coin, and we've got the relationship between her and this um, Irishman, the leprechaun, and you also get to see an episode that shows how he uh, the leprechaun, uh, who goes by the name of Mad Sweeney. He evidently held a kingdom at one point in time, and he was afraid of change. So he lost his kingdom, lost his wife, and everything, and it ended up being uh, Mr. Wednesday to begin with, who he had gone up against, who had cursed him to forever be the way he was. and is now. So it's kind of interesting how he ends up being killed at one point in time. So at the end of the season, we see the dead wife picking up his dead body and carrying it with her. Um, so, but the back and forward conversation between the dead wife and the Irishman is comical to say the least, and you almost get to see a human characteristic of that particular um, character. You're brought to realize that he's a little bit more human than his sarcasm brings him out to be. So I like his character. I mean, I like all the characters, but to me, Ian McShane is in his own element in some of these, especially when they end up having to trade to get a piece of this axe or or spear. uh, uh, a jacket that was worn by a like a famous musician of some sort. That was kind of classic, where Shadow Moon played this cop who uh, busted him for counterfeit bills. But in any case, there were some pretty cool scenes. I like the acting involved. There was definitely a lot of imagery that was involved historically as well as spiritually. I mean, you have to broaden your horizons about what you think new media would look like, or what you think the world would look like. What do you think some of these gods would actually look like? You know, some things are metaphoric. Some people were the same people over and over and over, and it brings to us a reality of a situation that there are some things that happen in this world that are beyond our control. But I love how there was a moment where Mr. World actually said something about how fear had something to do with controlling people. And in the very beginning of this one episode, he it talked about or the War of the Worlds, the original radio adaptation of the War of the Worlds. Was being listened to by a family, and they really thought it was real. So in that reality, in that respect, when that came about, it was a great hoax because people thought that this invasion was really happening. So, uh, but in reality, it was just a fantasy. But in any case, um, I love the different scenes, the different the different locations, and the fact that some of this series was set here in Wisconsin, especially at the House on the Rock. That is a very unique place here for tourist wise. I hope that place sticks around for like ever, and whoever owns it or whatnot keeps it up to date. And um, I'm glad that they were able to do certain things at the House in the Rock that normally a person was never able to do. Um, and it just it was a little bit nostalgic to watch them walk through the House on the Rock in that particular episode, in that beginning episode. That was amazing. But in any case, hopefully you enjoyed my description of these two seasons. I'd love to see what happens of this show. There's definitely more involved. I mean, new media evolved into something new, a Japanese chick. So that was interesting. But in any case, like, share, and subscribe to the page, and hopefully you check this show out. It was very entertaining to me. I would definitely recommend it, and it's definitely unique to see all these different characters playing these different varieties of scenarios. So thank you so much. Have a great day, evening, or morning, wherever you are. Appreciate your time spent here on the page. Thank you.
You were good, kid, real good. But as long as I'm around, you'll always be second best, see?